Ford High School Weekly is brought to you by your Oklahoma Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Oklahoma. And by Rib Crib, smoking good stuff since '92.
Welcome to Ford High School Weekly. I'm your host, Deion Imade. A few weeks ago, we talked to 3 local experts on high school recruiting and about the ways it's been changing in recent years. So, this is the second part of those conversations. We go back to Bill Blankenship, Michael Knight, and Jourdan to talk about today's recruiting world. Let's begin with the Oklahoman's high school sports writer, Jourdan, on the level of talent in Oklahoma and the importance of social media branding to college hopefuls. The talent in Oklahoma is rising, and you know the old saying, pressure makes diamonds. Do you think because there's fewer scholarships, the competition level is starting to, tick up a little bit, and these players are realizing that, and so because of that, they're putting more emphasis in the offseason, more training, more practice, just trying to get better, trying to get noticed so they get to that next level?
I definitely think so. I think one of the biggest things that you'll see coming out of this is that, like you say, pressure makes diamonds. The more competition you have, the harder you're going to have to be, the better you're going to be able to earn a scholarship. The harder you're going to have to work, the more time and dedication you're going to have to put into it. And you see that with every sport nowadays. There's so many multi-sport athletes who can excel at so many things, but to be a top-rated Division I football player, you have to be willing to put the time in.
So what's the negative that comes from all this? I mean, now that you're seeing players have to kind of put in more work and more time to get those top-notch scholarships, are you seeing maybe people have been talking about this for a while. Their kids are specializing where they're not playing other outside sports like basketball or track or baseball stuff. They're just focusing on one sport. Is that maybe a negative that can come from all this?
Yeah, you could definitely see kids stop playing multi-sports more. And I think that that's somewhat become a thing as time has gone on. And there's so many people who are against playing only one sport. They want to play multi-sport athletes. I mean, even college coaches, football coaches have come out and said, we love multi-sport athletes. But I definitely think that that's a negative that could come out of it. I also think one of the biggest negatives is you're going to see more kids taking an opportunity position. Those kids who really were going to be at the back end of those signing classes, the ones who are going to be in that 20 to 25 slot for these colleges, are going to have to either consider going to play at a JUCO, consider going to a Division II or Division III school, or having to walk on in a Division I school. And for some kids, that's just not an option. With a lot of times you get into financial issues. A kid the only way that they can get out of their situation in high school where they're at in their hometown is to get a Division I scholarship. So there's going to be situations where that comes up where kids aren't able to take advantage of that. These lower end, those guys at the back end of the signing class who aren't the stars of the class but are still really good football players are going to have to walk on to college programs. Not to say anybody by name, but this 2022 football class, there were numerous, I believe 15 to 20 kids just in Oklahoma who took walk-on positions at OU, OSU, and Tulsa instead of signing a scholarship somewhere. And that just kind of shows you that number has arguably never been as high when you combine all 3 of the schools. OSU's always had a really good walk-on program. OU has as well, but the numbers for even both of those schools has jumped tremendously in the class of 2022 with just in-state kids. There's out-of-state kids who will walk on at these programs as well. So you've definitely seen those changes really take effect, and it's going to continue happening.
We both know OSU's walk-on program was better than OU's. I know, Cameron. You don't have to say it. No, but with that being said, I mean, do you think the product like the JUCO and the Division II football will, also get better because of all the talent that's getting trickled down to them?
I definitely do. I mean, that's the thing, like we were talking about. When you have less scholarships for D1 guys, you're going to have some D1 guys who end up playing at a little bit of a lower level. And let's not kid ourselves, JUCO football, especially when you look at the Jayhawk Conference up in Kansas and with a couple of schools in Nebraska and Iowa as well, and then a Division II, like you have a ton of Division II programs here in Oklahoma. You're going to see them getting some of those prospects who could play Division I ball but are going to Division II. And when you get a better quality of athlete, ultimately it should make the product better. And I think that that's a good thing for all these levels of football. There is such a negative stigma around playing at a JUCO, around playing at a Division II, Division III. Obviously, everybody wants to be a Division I athlete. Everybody wants to suit up for the top tier schools in the country, the top programs in the country. But there's still really good football and really good opportunities that come from going to a JUCO for a couple of years, from playing Division II football for 4 years, going to an MIAA school to play sports. It is a negative stigma, and you see that a lot with the social media attention, just because everybody who gets attention nowadays is these Division I kids. but there's still a really good product at the Division II level, and really anything below Division I. There's a great product out there in all sports. And don't just want to focus on football here, but definitely when you get those better tiered athletes who could play at the Division I level who are choosing to go to Division II, it's going to make it a really good product.
Now, I know you deal with the facts and you don't have, get asked this question a lot, but I mean, if you could give an advice to some of these players and some of these athletes that are, being potentially recruited, but aren't, those superstar top tier guys, what kind of advice would you give them?
The biggest thing, and I see this now a lot of days, is recruiting has become such a big factor. You have to be good on social media. And that's in any profession nowadays. These athletes have to make a brand in high school. And I don't think many high schools really teach a course like this. And there's some people who are starting to get into this profession. And it's actually something that's really intriguing. These athletes have to have a brand. They have to have a place that you can go to and learn all about them, their academic side, their athletic side. You got to find out ways to contact their coaches. And athletes have to be good at broadcasting themselves on social media and selling themselves. These athletes, at the end of the day, are essentially a product for these universities. These universities will invest in the young men and women to come and represent their universities and play a sport. And obviously at the college level, even at the high school level, but more at the college level, you have to win. So what can you as an individual athlete, whether you're a volleyball player, whether you're a football player, whether you play tennis, what can you do for this university to impress not only on the field, on the court, wherever, but as well in the classroom? All those things add in. Universities want people who can to represent them well. So you have to market yourself. You have to sell yourself. You have to create a brand. You have to do things that make yourself stand out. And doing that and having things organized in sort of a portfolio-like way is one of the best ways to do that. Something that a coach who's looking for somebody to come to their program can look at and say, this guy has all the qualities we want. The film stands out. The academics stand out. Here's all the reviews about them, and they market themselves really well. This would be someone who we want to represent our university. Because at the end of the day, if you're a good athlete, you're going to find a way to make plays. But if you can really impress a coach for the things that you can do off the field and how well you can market themselves, they're going to start looking at that as we can really use somebody like this to market not only our team, our university, but we can help set them up for success in the future too. So just really how well you can make a brand for yourself and really sell yourself in a degree. To sell yourself to these universities and to these programs and say, here's how I can help you. And that's really what comes to mind first.
Another good way to market yourself is get Cameron Jourdan to write about you in the Oklahoman, or come on to Ford High School Weekly and we'll do it for you as well. Michael Knight will be here from Prep Redzone next. He says the transfer portal and the early signing period have changed the playing field for college recruits and recruiters.
Ford High School Weekly is brought to you by Billy Sims Barbecue. It's not just barbecue, it's Boomer Q.
Welcome back to Ford High School Weekly. Michael Knight from Prep Redzone covers football and basketball recruiting all over the state of Oklahoma. The early signing period and now the transfer portal have changed the game on scholarships completely. One of the things that's not benefiting the kids is you're starting to see a little bit of a uptick in schools rescinding their offers to individuals who verbally commit or, just decide, hey, you had this offer, now you don't. Have you seen that number grow for the student athletes? And if so, what's causing it?
I think the transfer portal has something to do with it. I also think that the early signing period really sped up the clock for these schools where they're offering kids way earlier than they used to. And so, if you don't get your signing class intact by that, that third Wednesday, whatever it is in December, you're kind of scrambling for the next couple of weeks or the next 6 weeks or so before the next signing period in February. And so I don't know if it's, if those numbers have gone up as far as, schools taking that offer back. But what's so interesting is, I think that schools will offer kids left and right, but at the end of the day, you're only going to be able to sign so many of them. So I think it's important for parents, kids, coaches to be on the same page with each other. Like, okay, well, we got this offer from school A, and then we got an offer from school B. Which one is actually committable? which one is one that we can actually commit to, and they'll honor that, because you have a school that they're only going to be able to sign, depending on their numbers, 20 to 25 prospects, maybe a little bit more if they have a lot of losses to transfers or graduation. And they're out there offering, 60, 70, 80 kids. They're not going to be able to sign all of them. So you have to figure out as a player what offer you have is actually committable, that the school's going to stand by, and then, figure it out from there.
Yeah. The thing that I really wanted to ask you before we get out of here is NIL is the three popular letters in this day and age of football and high school football even. So how has that changed the recruiting game for high school athletes?
I think kids are thinking about that more now. I don't know how much of an effect it's going to have at the high school level. And, we're supposed to, this is the dirty little secret, when it comes to college recruiting. NIL isn't supposed to have an impact on recruiting. You're not supposed to be able to, but come on. I mean, we all know that it's going to have an impact on recruiting. Like these college programs are setting up departments that will basically fund their NIL deals for their student athletes. So, it's absolutely going to have an impact on recruiting in the future. I think that it's still very early in that process of, we don't know a whole lot about it. I mean, it hasn't even been a year since the NIL thing started being available to athletes across the country. So I think kids are learning more about it as we continue to grow with it. I also think that there's going to be a step back on it where, some of these deals aren't going to be as outrageous as they've been over the last couple of months. Some of these people are going to be like, okay, maybe that wasn't, money well spent on our part. That probably wasn't a good investment. And at the end of the day, that's what it is. You're trying to get the best kids, out of college. So I think that the more we learn about it, let's give it a couple years before we make it decide how much of an impact this truly had. But I think kids are learning more about it every single day, and eventually it will have an impact on kids here in Oklahoma that, especially the high profile prospects, the borderline 5-star guys, they're going to be, recruited by everybody, and NIL is certainly going to have an impact on that recruitment.
Owasso's head coach Bill Blankenship joins us. He's got an idea about what players need to be thinking about when they're being recruited. That's coming up next here on Ford High School Weekly. Welcome back to Ford High School Weekly. Our two-part recruiting special continues with Owasso head coach Bill Blankenship. He has insight on how scholarship offers can come and go. And he says recruiting process can be a little bit like getting married. In the past, you wouldn't have seen something like a kid gets offered a scholarship and then it gets rescinded. But it seems like it's something that's been on the uptick here as of late in the recruiting world. What do you tell players when those situations come up, and how often have you seen it happen lately?
Well, when you talk about the deals or the offers being rescinded, I haven't seen it a lot. There's certainly been situations over the years that happens, sometimes because there's a coaching change, sometimes because a player just doesn't want to make a decision. And we say it's been rescinded, but nearly every case, a university is offering 4, 5, or 6 kids for that one spot. And it's not unusual to have the conversation with the young men that are all going to, you're recruiting people to be the next running back. Well, how many scholarships do you have for that spot? Well, it's maybe 1 or 2. So it's not unusual to say, hey, we're going to take 2 of these, but we're offering 6 of you. So who gets that? Well, the guy that makes his mind up first. So if you're into to negotiating or trying to play the field and you want to take all your visits, all that's good. But sometimes those scholarships actually go away because those schools are going to fill up with young men that have committed to them. So you've got to play your odds a little bit and know that if I really want to dance for a long time, everybody may not still be here when the music stops. Or if I get my dream school, go ahead and jump on that thing and get that thing committed. And you see that.
So that means you got to compete to the very end, huh, Coach?
Absolutely. And I think it's important as a player, as a recruit, that you need to understand that you're still being evaluated. Just because you say, I want to go to that school, you put that in your back pocket and decide to, opt out of the playoffs, or you're, you just don't know if you want to play as hard this year because you got to protect yourself for the play. Well, all they see is this is the same guy, and he's going to do the same thing when he gets to college, and you're dealing with the NFL. So your pattern of behavior really impacts who wants to be around you and who wants to continue to have that relationship as you move forward.
Coach, you've given us so much great insight here. And what my last question for you is, what should players be thinking about when they're going through this whole process?
Well, and this is a little bit dated, because the portal has changed the way we see things. I used to tell kids that, as much as you don't want to think about this now, that the recruiting process is a little bit like getting married, that you want to start, and we're not ready to get married. We want to flirt around, and we want to, just kind of get your attention if you're a pretty girl, and the pretty girls want to get your attention if you're a guy. Well, that's really what recruiting starts out to be. We're just trying to get you to be attentive to our logo and all the things that we have. And we're trying to make ourselves attractive to you. And most of the athletes are out there doing the same thing. They're trying to post times at track meets. They're trying to go to camps. They're trying to be seen, make highlight tapes, all that. Why? To get the attention of those schools and to, flirt with them. Eventually, you're going to get schools that focus in and go, I really like these guys. And so it's almost like a dating service, whether it's unofficial, which is kind of like what we used to call going on Dutch. You're going to pay for it. We're not paying for your meal yet. Or if it's an official visit, now, they're going to pay for your trip and your family and all this stuff that goes with it. But you don't get to get a lot of those, 5 of those max. Or you can see the unofficial visits where you're going to pay your way. Well, that gets tiring after a while. At some point, you want to make a commitment to a school. And we believe that when you commit, that's kind of like saying you want to get engaged. The guy that says I'm committed but keeps dating is not very committed, in our opinion. So we use that model to say, look, don't say you're committed until you're committed. And then when I'm committed, I'm ready to be through with, the dating. And so I know where I want to go. I know what I want to do. I know that's not the norm nowadays, Deion. And it works on both sides. I get frustrated sometimes with colleges because we have guys that are really, really good that don't seem to be getting that offer until they get an offer. It's kind of like a guy back when I was in school. Now this maybe I'm embellished a little bit, but I couldn't get a girlfriend until I got a girlfriend. And then when you get a girl, the other girls really want to see, can they take you from her? And that's a little bit what happens, I think, with the offer deal. Man, if nobody's offered him yet, there must be something wrong until somebody offers him. Mm-hmm. Then they get that offer. And now next thing you know, in the next week or two, you got 2 or 3 more offers because we don't quite have the pressure of being, well, I'm the only one that thinks you're beautiful.
Yeah, sometimes that first offer or that first girlfriend is the hardest one to get.
Yeah, brother.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for joining us here on Ford High School Weekly. You shared so much with us. We're learning a lot. So I appreciate it, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
All right, Deion. Good to see you, brother.
Up next, I'll give you my take on today's recruiting process when Ford High School Weekly continues.
Ford High School Weekly is brought to you by Billy Sims Barbecue. It's not just barbecue, it's Boomer Q.
Welcome back to Ford High School Weekly. I'm Deion Imade. When I was recruited out of high school, the transfer portal and the early signing period didn't exist yet. A lot of things didn't exist yet. I remember for me to be proud and show my classmates who was interested in who was recruiting me, I had to take those letters with the logo of the school and put in my back pocket so they could see as I walked through the classroom and through the hallways. Now, kids can just repost and retweet, and everybody in the world can see who's talking to them and who's interested in them. But the changes aren't always good. Here's the situation we're looking at. The transfer portal has made it easy for those kids who think they have better opportunities elsewhere to go elsewhere. But there's the downside. Those individuals and players that are on those teams never know who's coming in and out and where they stand with the coaching staff or on the depth chart. As far as the early signing period, it's been a great thing for students to get that out of the way, decide where they want to go to school, and the coaching staff can decide who's going to be on their roster even earlier and what holes they need to fill. It's been good and it's been bad. But the thing you have to remember is you got to make the best decision for yourself. You got to make the right decision for your family, and you got to make sure that you're happy at the end of the day. Yes, there's a lot of anxiety that goes with this process and this decision making, but the fact of the matter is you got to do what's best for you. Here's the situation. Offers are going to be handed out, but not everybody's going to get a look. So those who do, make sure you cherish those opportunities. You are happy with the decision you make, and you make sure that you, at the end of the day, live up to what you can and will be. You only make a decision where you're going to go once in life. But when it comes to the transfer portal, I guess you can make that decision twice. Go to YurView.com/OK for highlights and check out our podcast and past episodes at YurView.com/OK. Only the best in Oklahoma, like Bill Blankenship, Cameron Jourdan, and Michael Knight, make it to Ford High School Weekly. I want to thank them for sharing their insight with us and hope these shows help you better understand how recruiting is working now. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm Deion Imade.
Ford High School Weekly has been brought to you by your Oklahoma Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Oklahoma. And by Rib Crib, smoking good stuff since '92.